I still remember the way the wind felt on my face that morning. It was soft, like a promise whispered by the universe itself. We had been planning this trip for years, talking about it during quiet dinners in the middle of traffic, and even on nights when the world felt too heavy to dream. And suddenly it was real. The plane tickets, the hotel confirmations, the smell of new luggage. Everything said, "This is happening." I didn't know it yet, but my life was about to change forever. When we landed, I could barely breathe. The air was different, lighter somehow, as if it carried all the emotions we'd been too afraid to speak. He looked at me with that quiet smile, the one that always made my heart slow down, and said, "We're really here." I laughed, half in disbelief, half in awe. I think I already knew this trip wasn't just another vacation. It felt like destiny had quietly written something for us, something we were finally about to read. Our first morning together felt like a movie. The light spilling through the curtains painted gold over his face, and for a moment I didn't move. I just watched him breathe, the way his chest rose and fell, peaceful, calm. I remember thinking, if this isn't love, then what is? Outside, the sea shimmered like a dream, and when he opened his eyes, he smiled as if he'd been watching me all along. We didn't say much, we didn't have to. Silence between us had always been sacred. Later that day, we walked through narrow streets filled with laughter, scents of coffee and flowers, music playing from somewhere unseen. Everything felt alive, like the city itself was blessing us. He held my hand tighter whenever a crowd passed by, and every time our fingers brushed, it sent a current through my soul. It was as if every step we took was stitching us closer to forever. That evening, we found a small restaurant overlooking the ocean. Candles flickered between us, the kind of light that makes everything softer, even your fears. I remember the way he looked at me when I laughed at something silly. There was something different in his eyes that night. Something deeper. I didn't know it yet, but that gaze carried a secret. One that was waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed. We spent hours talking about everything. Our past, our future, our dreams. I told him how scared I was sometimes, how love still felt fragile, even when it was this beautiful. He reached for my hand, his voice barely a whisper. Love isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be real. And in that instant, I felt something shift inside me. Like the world had stopped spinning just to let that truth settle into my heart. The next morning, he woke me up before sunrise. "Come on," he said softly, excitement glowing in his eyes. "I want to show you something." We walked to the cliffs overlooking the ocean. The air was crisp, the waves crashing below like a song. He wrapped his jacket around my shoulders and we stood there, watching the sky turn from indigo to pink, then gold. "Every sunrise is a promise," he whispered. "A reminder that we always get to start again." I smiled, unaware that those words were setting the stage for something extraordinary. Days passed like pages of a love letter. Every corner of that place seemed to mirror what we felt for each other. Timeless, gentle, infinite. We danced under streetlights, got caught in unexpected rain, shared ice cream on a random bench, and told stories we'd never told anyone before. It was as if the universe had slowed down just to give us this chapter. Then came the day that changed everything. It was our last night there. The city was glowing under a silver moon, and I remember him being strangely quiet. His hands trembled slightly when he took mine, and I laughed, teasing him. "You're acting weird. What's going on?" He smiled nervously, kissed my forehead, and said, "You'll see." He led me through a narrow path that opened up to a viewpoint overlooking the entire coastline. Lanterns floated in the distance, the kind people release with wishes written on them. The wind carried the scent of jasmine, and the world seemed to fade until it was just us. Two souls standing at the edge of something eternal. He reached into his pocket, and my heart skipped a beat. "I once promised myself," he said, his voice shaking, "that when I finally met someone who made the world make sense, I wouldn't let her go." He took a small box from his jacket and my knees felt weak. "You are my calm after every storm, my home in every place, my dream that somehow became real." He opened the box and the moonlight caught the ring. My breath caught too. For a moment everything went silent. No wind, no waves, no time. Just his eyes full of love and fear and hope all at once. "Will you marry me?" he whispered. I didn't answer right away, I couldn't. Tears filled my eyes and I felt my heart overflow with every memory we had shared. Then finally I nodded. "Yes." He laughed through tears, pulling me into his arms, spinning me under the night sky. The crowd below cheered, strangers who somehow became witnesses to the most beautiful moment of our lives. The lanterns rose higher, lighting up the sky like 1,000 blessings, and I thought, this must be what heaven feels like. That night, as we lay under the stars, he kept whispering, "I can't believe you said yes." And I kept laughing, still trembling with happiness. I told him, "It was never a question. You've been my answer all along." He smiled and kissed me, slow and certain. The world could have ended right there and I wouldn't have minded. But it wasn't just the proposal that made that trip unforgettable. It was everything around it. The way we laughed until our cheeks hurt. The way strangers smiled at us as if they could sense our joy. The quiet moments when nothing was said but everything was understood. Love, I realized, isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's hidden in the smallest details. The way he carried my bag when I was tired, or how he'd sneak glances at me like he couldn't believe I was real. And as I watched him sleep that night, ring still glimmering faintly on my hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. Like all the searching, all the heartbreak, all the nights I'd cried wondering if I'd ever find something real, had led me right here. To him. To this. To love that didn't need to be perfect, just true. The morning after the proposal, I woke up to the sound of seagulls and the faint scent of coffee. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, warm and golden, like the universe itself was blessing our new beginning. He was already awake, sitting by the balcony, holding 2 cups. When I stepped out, he smiled and said, "Good morning, fiancé." I froze for a second, then laughed, realizing how magical that word sounded, fiancé. It carried weight, tenderness, and something sacred. We sat in silence, watching the waves crash against the rocks. There was something peaceful about the rhythm of the ocean, as if it knew every secret of love and loss. He reached for my hand, tracing small circles on my skin. "You know," he whispered. "I was terrified you'd say no." I smiled, squeezing his fingers gently. "You had nothing to fear." My heart decided long before my words did. Later that day, we decided to explore one last time before heading home. The city seemed to glow differently, or maybe it was me. Every sound, every scent, every color felt heightened, as though the world had taken a deep breath with us. We wandered into a small market filled with handmade trinkets, the kind that tell stories through imperfections. I bought a small charm shaped like a compass, so I never lose my way back to you, I told him. He smiled and kissed my forehead. We took pictures, silly and imperfect, the kind that never make it to social media but live forever in your heart. At one point, a local woman stopped us, smiled, and said in broken English, "You two, your souls, they glow." I laughed, embarrassed, but deep down I felt she saw something real, the kind of love that can't be hidden, only felt. That evening, we packed our bags slowly, neither of us wanting the moment to end. I remember staring at my ring, watching how it caught the light, and thinking about everything it symbolized, not just commitment but faith. Faith in love, in timing, in everything that once felt impossible. When you've been through heartbreaks, you stop believing in fairy tales. But sometimes life gives you one anyway. Only this time it's written in reality, not fantasy. When we boarded the plane, I leaned my head on his shoulder, the world shrinking below us. I whispered, "Do you ever wonder how we got so lucky?" He turned to me, his eyes soft. "It's not luck," he said. "It's grace. We didn't find love. Love found us." Those words stayed with me, echoing in the quiet moments that followed. Back home, everything felt different, yet beautifully familiar. Friends gathered around, asking for every detail of the proposal. My mom cried when she saw the ring, and my best friend screamed loud enough to make the neighbors wonder what was happening. But behind all the excitement, I felt something deeper. A quiet awareness that life was shifting into a new chapter. The days that followed were filled with planning, dreaming, and endless what-ifs. But the magic of that trip never faded. Sometimes, in the middle of a normal afternoon, I'd catch a glimpse of him from across the room, and it would all come rushing back. The lanterns, the moonlight, his trembling hands. And I'd think, how did I ever exist before this? One night, while looking through our photos, I found one I didn't remember taking. It was me, staring out at the ocean, the wind blowing my hair, completely unaware he was capturing that moment. I stared at it for a long time. There was something about it, pure, unguarded, infinite. And I realized that love isn't just about the grand moments. It's about being seen, truly seen, even when you don't notice. Weeks later, we went back to our routine work responsibilities, the rhythm of everyday life. But something had changed. We started making time for sunsets, for slow walks, for reminding each other why we started. Because love, no matter how magical, needs nurturing. And we promised ourselves we'd never let the world make us forget how it all began. With a dream, a trip, and a sunrise. There were challenges, of course. Life always tests what's real. There were arguments, misunderstandings, moments where fear tried to creep in. But every time we came back to that night on the cliff, the promise beneath the stars. Love doesn't mean never falling apart. It means choosing every single day to come back together. Months later, on a quiet evening, he asked, "Do you ever wish we could go back to that trip?" I smiled. "We don't have to," I said, "because we carried it with us every day since." And I meant it. That journey wasn't just a vacation. It was a spiritual awakening, a reminder that love at its purest is an act of faith. One morning, I woke before him and stood by the window. The light filtered softly through the curtains, and I found myself whispering a silent thank you to the universe. For timing, for second chances, for him. Because somewhere between fear and hope, I had found what my heart had been waiting for all along. A love that felt like home. Sometimes I still replay that trip in my mind. The streets, the music, the way his eyes reflected the sea. I think about how fragile everything was, how easily it could have gone differently. But that's what makes love so powerful. It survives the odds, the distance, the doubt. It's not about perfection. It's about truth. A few months before our wedding, we returned to the same place. This time not as dreamers but as believers. We visited the same restaurant, the same cliff, the same path where he'd asked me to be his forever. As we stood there, I felt tears well up again. He wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "It feels like coming full circle." And it did. The wind, the sea, the same endless sky. Only now everything felt even deeper. We lit a small lantern together, just like the ones from that night, and wrote a new wish. May our love keep finding new ways to begin. We released it, watching it rise, glowing brighter as it disappeared into the night. I held his hand tighter and he smiled, saying, "We made our dream come true." Later, as we walked back to the hotel, I thought about all the versions of me that had led here. The one who doubted, the one who hoped, the one who dared to love again. Every version had been necessary. Every heartbreak, every waiting season had prepared me for this. Sometimes the universe delays our dreams, not to punish us, but to perfect the timing. That night, lying beside him, I realized something. Love isn't found. It's built, moment by moment, glance by glance, promise by promise. It's the courage to stay, to forgive, to grow together even when it's hard. And when it's real, it changes everything. Not just your story, but your soul. As sleep began to take me, I whispered softly, "Thank you for choosing me." He smiled, eyes half closed, and murmured, "Always." And just like that, the world faded into quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like forever. If I could go back, I wouldn't change a single thing. Not the waiting, not the heartbreak, not even the moments of doubt. Because they all led me to him. To us. Love, I've learned, isn't about how perfect the story looks. It's about how deeply it's felt. And somewhere between the first sunrise and that whispered yes, I found something eternal. When I look at him now, I don't just see the man who proposed. I see the dream that came true, and the beginning of every tomorrow I never dared to imagine.